Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has spoken out about the Minnesota Vikings quarterback search, including what is remaining for Aaron Rodgers, the thought process on J.J. McCarthy with the Minnesota Vikings, as well as his own contract extension. We're going to be talking about his press conference today, what he said, and a lot of interesting keys that are going to be brought to attention in the remainder of the offseason. Very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into this video, if you haven't already, be sure to hit the sub button. We noticed that just over 90% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel, so if you're looking for a spot for all of your Minnesota Vikings news, you're in the right spot. Hit the sub button, join me and Griffin here on the channel. We're covering everything Minnesota Vikings, and as we get closer and closer to the draft, we're going to have a lot more videos coming out soon, including some more that we're going to be touching on in the next few days. You will not want to miss them, but without any further ado, let's get into the beginning of this video. First off, when Kwesi Adofo-Mensah came out of this press conference, started off by talking about J.J. McCarthy, what the process is behind him so far this offseason, and what the Vikings' thought process behind the quarterback search still remains is. But starting off with J.J. McCarthy, this comes from Kevin Seifert. We do have kind of a jumble of different people coming out and putting out these Kwesi Adofo-Mensah tweets, those who were at the press conference being able to streamline this to all of us here on X. But Kevin Seifert here says Kwesi Adofo-Mensah on J.J. McCarthy on quarterback number 1. That's the outcome we want, and that's the outcome we're headed towards. So for those who still didn't believe it, for those who are thinking that we're going to see another quarterback search for the Minnesota Vikings, a potential starter other than J.J. McCarthy, that does not seem to be the case. Now, Kwesi didn't stop there. He also went on to touch about Aaron Rodgers, what else they're going to be looking at, the more thought process on J.J. McCarthy, and also kind of touching on just about everything here. And I mentioned last video as well, and kind of a few before as well, that Russell Wilson could have been another option. That is now off the table. He's signed with the New York Giants, and as they are going to be without a quarterback for, quite some time, they now have that guy there, and the quarterback search for them is still going to be interesting, but that does not mean the Vikings are done searching yet. We know there's going to be a backup in place somewhere. The Vikings still don't have a backup, and right now, on the depth chart, J.J. McCarthy is the only quarterback there. So looking at him as QB1, that's the option that we're looking at. And of course, a backup is still going to be in the cards somewhere else. But J.J. McCarthy, his discussions, Kwesi's discussions on him did not stop there. He goes on with this. At this exact moment, he's passed every test with flying colors. And this kind of goes back as well to last season, when he, before he got injured in a training camp, before the season, everything was going well for him, and of course that injury had to happen, which set him back a full season. He was on pace to become the starting quarterback over Sam Darnold, but looking at this now, looking at the way that it played out, we really, I think, caught a very big stretch of good luck there. First of all, we saw how Sam Darnold progressed. We saw how good he was last season. Really wasn't the best when it mattered, but I think that this team exceeded a lot of expectations, and let me know if they exceeded yours last season. I do think that many people were not too high in the Vikings last year, and, I'm not afraid to say it. I wasn't either, especially with the way last season played out. Before that and everything, I was hoping for a pretty good season, but that was much better than what I anticipated. And now seeing J.J. McCarthy sit a year, watch the Vikings system, have, contact, conversations, just talking ball with the Minnesota Vikings, their organization, Kevin O'Connell, Sam Darnold, I think this is going to be able to put him in a much higher level than the rest of the quarterbacks in that draft. Being able to sit in this organization, watch a 14-3 team go out there, play some very good football for the entire season, now come in, take the reins yourself, that's one thing that I'm very excited to see. And I think that him as well as many other quarterbacks in last year's draft would have benefited from this, and we saw how good that worked out for Jordan Love behind Aaron Rodgers. Still, a much different scenario, more time sitting behind, but we see Jordan Love now, a very good quarterback. There's no denying that. As much as we don't want to see him have success against the Minnesota Vikings or for the Green Bay Packers, he still is a very good quarterback. But we also have more quotes coming out here, specifically based on J.J. McCarthy, and this is what Kwesi had said. We wanted to build the type of team that could support a young quarterback who were excited about being here, competing every day. You don't know what January football is going to be like. You want to build a team that can win at any type of game, and that's what we set out to do, and will continue to do when the draft comes. So Kwesi has, kind of leaked the plan here for the Minnesota Vikings that they're not done just yet. They're still going to be looking towards the draft to make this team better, younger, and be ready for January football. Now, whether that entails adding more to the defense, whether that entails adding a potential right guard to this already brand new, stacked, revamped offensive line to help out J.J. McCarthy, the Vikings have made every right step forward to make sure that this season is going to be a good one for the Vikings, but also making sure that J.J. McCarthy is going to be here with this team in the best scenario possible. The offensive line is going to be a big struggle that we needed to fix in the offseason, and adding Will Fries, Ryan Kelly to this list made it immediately better. There's an option for right guard in the draft that we're going to be kind of touching on once again in a future video. But as it does come out to all of these kind of plays that the Vikings have made for J.J. McCarthy, these are in the best interest of him, the team, and also being able to spend that money, which is one thing that Griffin has been very, very, pressured on in this Vikings offseason, is that they want to make sure that they have the money to get every free agent they want. And if they had any other quarterback than J.J. McCarthy, it would have been a very big challenge to do, and it does seem like that's been the case. That's what Kwesi has been kind of really putting out there and emphasizing for this Vikings team. But with J.J. McCarthy also comes the discussions of other quarterbacks. What's going to happen? The big conversation for Kwesi as well today was, what was the thought process behind Aaron Rodgers? We know that seems to be out the door right now from reports of saying that the Vikings are not in on Aaron Rodgers for the time being, but things can change, and that's one thing that Kwesi was not afraid to say here. When asked on the question if he could rule out Aaron Rodgers as a possibility for a quarterback addition, he said this: "For me to sit here and say anything is 100% forever, that's just not the job." And I do like this response from Kwesi. It definitely does not seem like they're going to be signing Aaron Rodgers, but you really can't count anything out in this game. In any, of the major four sports in North America, in any sport across the world, you can't say anything is for certain. We've seen some of the craziest moves. One that comes to mind immediately is Luka Doncic being traded to the Lakers. Something like that, you never could imagine that would happen, and now we see it happen. Now, this is on a much different scale. Aaron Rodgers, bit of an older guy right now at this point, still not be the best quarterback available to this point when it comes to a backup, but it certainly is something that is very possible and happening. I think that if that Luka trade said anything, that just tells us that anything is possible in today's sports world. And I do like this response from Kwesi, as I mentioned. It kind of don't count it out, but he's saying that, as much as it is probably unlikely, it could be certainly an option if things do come down to any random circumstance down the line. Now, this is one thing that we've been discussing on a bit. Is he the right quarterback? Is he the guy that you want as the backup? Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it due to the money, due to, his kind of ego of wanting to be a starter and kind of sitting behind someone. We wouldn't want that, but it does seem like he's a bit hungry for the Minnesota Vikings, which is something to still think about as we kind of get down to it. But once again, Kwesi says about Aaron Rodgers, it's our job to make sure we are aware of every potential option. We are happy with where we are moving forward. And I think this is kind of adding to that last bit, kind of closing the door on Aaron Rodgers without necessarily confirming it, saying that we're happy with where we are, but, the option is still always there if it is desperately needed. And we don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. Right now, it does seem like the Steelers are either going to draft up to get a quarterback or take Aaron Rodgers. With Russell Wilson now gone, they don't have a quarterback, so it does seem like it's one of the two options. And if Aaron Rodgers remains a free agent throughout the season, something could happen. The Vikings may choose to get him as a free agent, but that doesn't seem necessarily likely at this point in time. But Kwesi was a very busy man here today, discussing a lot of this GM stuff, a lot of this stuff going on with the team, but he's also in need of a contract extension. And this is what he said when asked about this. He can't say exactly where he stands in terms of a contract extension, but there has been positive conversations between between his representatives and Minnesota. And I think that's the important thing. Kwesi has been very, very vocal about not rushing his own contract. His goal right now and his job right now is to make this team better, and he has certainly done that to this point. And I'm excited to see where this does go from the draft as well, but I do need to see Kwesi Adofo-Mensah back as the GM of the Minnesota Vikings. There's no question this needs to happen, and he seems to be ready for it. The Vikings seem to be ready for it, and I think it's just a matter of time until this does come down to it, when the fellas are done getting ready to get everything set for the offseason, get ready for next season, and we go from there. But Kwesi had a lot of stuff to talk about today, a lot of this kind of coming down to it, but I think the big things that we're looking at as well, the picks, the quarterback stuff, everything here, Kwesi is still keeping in mind that there's still business. And coming from this, he said that the teams is being mindful of the compensatory picks process, that we search for another veteran quarterback. Players signed after April 29th, so about a month from recording this video, a month and a few days, won't count against the Vikings in that process. So if they do go out, get any really backup that would be at this point, get it without a compensatory pick, that stands, once again, in the better scenario for the Minnesota Vikings. So, still, adding all these little tiny things coming into this offseason, the free agency, these little smart things of making the picks matter for the Vikings and stuff like this, that just adds on to this GM, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, being one of the best GMs in the league, and keeping this as, a very smart businessman. And, there's no doubts in my mind that he's been one in the past. He's been a very good businessman, quit a Wall Street job to become a GM in the Minnesota Vikings system. Of course, had to go through the reins with the 49ers and everything first, but he has shown that he knows the game. He knows ball. He knows the business side of things, and he's a very strong candidate for a GM. And we look at the backups here that are available. Still quite a few, and it'll be interesting to see who the Vikings will go after, and could be after the April 29th deadline. We never know, and whoever's going to be available then will be very interesting to see. But that's all I got in this video. Let me know what you think about Kwesi's comments here today. There's a lot of stuff that's very exciting from Vikings fans, kind of closing the door on the Aaron Rodgers saga, but not fully locking it. Going out to J.J. McCarthy, kind of saying that, and without necessarily saying that he's going to be the QB number one. Things can change, but they certainly seem to be going down the path that Vikings fans want. Let me know what you think here in the comments below. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. But I'm signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.